when I was sending out these private emails to this select group of game changers in the early part of the 2010s, it the world did not know what was really going on. There was not much awareness going on, but now it's really taking hold. People want answers. There's a lot of unhappy people out there that are paycheck to paycheck. U.S. and U.K. It's like probably like 3/4 of the population, doesn't have enough money for emergencies that come up. They don't have the savings, and we're seeing the chasm between the haves and have-nots at an all-time high. It's worse than actually in the Great Depression. I know the stats like to say, oh, the 1930s was the worst situation of that, but actually we're worse off now. A lot of the stats are manipulated in such an egregious way, like the inflation data, the GDP data. A lot of this stuff is poor. It's manipulated to paint a very unrealistic picture that is optimistic to paper over what's really going on. And I mean, there's a lot of, like what Churchill once said, the British people are living lives of quiet desperation. I think that accounts for much of the world today. So I don't ever single out any particular government. I mean, I've had run-ins with certain governments, but there's no particular government that I would ever single out because they're comprised of people who are doing their jobs, trying to put food on the table, and they're all part of the system. The problem is with the centralized structure of these governments that lends itself to the corrupt behavior and the old boys network and the favoritism and regulatory capture, which causes tons of inflation and on and on and on that I talk about in my book. These are things that can be diminished, minimized with a centralized system of governance. And we finally have the technologies at hand to facilitate that sort of decentralized structure. I mean, Bitcoin, of course, is the first technology to really create a centralized way of transacting goods and services. But we're seeing all sorts of decentralized tech enter the fray, from Wi-Fi to CPUs to, I mean, everything can be basically decentralized. And I think the world is heading in that direction. We probably are going to see more decentralized social media at some point, but right now, centralized systems have all the eyeballs, and so that's where it makes sense to be. We really need a Web3 kind of tipping point. Like if I use an analogy with gaming is multi-billion-dollar industry, and they're all centralized, but Web3 has advantages with gaming because if you want to leave a game, you have to leave your character and your items behind. But with Web3, you could port everything over to the new Web3 game. So you just get transformed into the new platform. And that is a huge advantage to gamers. I think that's a great selling point. And all it takes is one major gaming company to launch something on Web3 that I think a lot of others will join the force. And so the gaming world, for instance, could become very decentralized on that basis. So if the analogy on gaming and everything else, I think there's many things that will take advantage of that decentralized architecture. Also, with Web3, you can build on other people's products. So the amount of innovation is orders of magnitude higher because of the Web3 architecture compared to centralized systems where everything's kind of closed. And so there's so many systems that would benefit from that sort of Web3 decentralization. We also have decentralized technologies like decentralized science, where you don't have these ivory towers and all these protections where ideas are generally not shared. If you have decentralized science, you can have blockchain structure where you have token governance, and all these different rules can be applied to where anyone can participate, anyone with a good idea. The good ideas will rise to the top like cream, and they get voted on and maybe enacted. Maybe this is a great idea that would never have seen the light of day in journals because, as Peter Thiel pointed out, in the hallowed halls of academia, in the Ivy Leagues, whether it's West Coast or East Coast, there is this groupthink mentality that's been going on for years. So if you step outside of the lines, you could potentially lose not only your reputation, but also your funding. And so
Mm-hmm.
professors have to kind of stay within their bounds, and that limits innovation greatly. It limits discovery. But with decentralized science, that all goes away when we have the complete unmitigated freedom to say what we say, see what we see, share what we discover. And I think the more people that are joining those kinds of systems, the better off the world is going to be, because the pace of innovation will exponentially rise as a consequence. And so I think that genie is coming out of the bottle as we speak. And I don't think it's very long before that those kinds of systems really start to take hold.